Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the Building on Bitcoin virtual event. My name is Andre Serrano, the Stacks Foundation, and today's session is going to be on understanding liquid stacking. We're going to be discussing everything that you need to know about why it matters, its impact on Bitcoin DeFi and the Stacks ecosystem. And we're joined here by some of the leading projects and infrastructure companies that are really pushing the space forward. So join with me here today. We have Tycho from Stacking DAO. We have Tim Varner from Papaya. We have Jakob from Hermetica and Anuj from Luganodes. Gentlemen, welcome to the panel today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to start off just with some brief introductions. If you could take a few moments to introduce yourselves and your projects. And we'll go in the same order. So Tycho, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, thanks very much for that intro. And yeah, this is I think a very timely panel right now. But yeah, I'm Tycho, co-founder of Zest protocol, which will be a Bitcoin lending protocol. And the first product that Zest protocol will launch is lending markets on Stacks, and that's one of the reasons why I also started Stacking DAO, which is now grown to becoming the largest LST on Stacks. About $60 million of liquidity, and yeah, in that sense, really powering DeFi and powering apps like Zest protocol in the future.
Awesome, and yeah, Stacking DAO launched in December of this year. It's already gone on to achieve more than $60 million in total value locked. So it's been great to see that impact on the ecosystem. Tim, why don't we turn it over to you?
Yeah, I'm Tim Varner. I'm one of the four co-founders of Papaya. We are building liquid stacking for Bitcoin rewards as part of the ecosystem. We've been in the ecosystem now for, I don't know, a couple years, and we were fortunate enough to receive a grant to think through liquid stacking designs. Several other people were, but we were really excited, and not just what we came up with in terms of design, but also what others were doing. And we believe pretty deeply that any DeFi ecosystem needs, and if you look historically at other ecosystems, liquid staking components. And we believe really strongly, obviously, in a DeFi ecosystem on Bitcoin, and we're really excited to be here with these other founders.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. And Jakob.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Jakob. I'm the founder of Hermetica and have been in the space for a couple of years building Hermetica, and we're really taking the liquid staking approach as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second, but our basis is we're bringing non-custodial yield solutions to Bitcoin and Stacks assets now as well, meaning we have a first set of products that are coming online in the next couple of weeks that allow you to essentially put your Bitcoin to work in one of our vaults. We execute advanced option strategies, derivative strategies against that to generate more yield.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Anuj.
Thanks, Andre. First of all, thank you very much to the Stacks Foundation to invite me here and be part of this amazing conference. So I'm Anuj. I'm the CEO of Luganodes. We are a Swiss-operated non-custodial staking / now stacking provider. We were born out of Lugano Plan B program, which is an initiative driven by Tether and the city of Lugano. So now it's more so also known as Bitcoin City, with more than 400 merchants accepting payments in crypto, that is Bitcoin. So you can walk into McDonald's and pay using Bitcoin or Tether in Lugano. We are currently one of the world's fastest growing staking providers. We manage about more than $1.5 billion in staked assets. We're live and working with a lot of different protocols, almost 40 plus now. And yeah, we are here now supporting Stacks. So super excited to join this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, just a few weeks ago, Luganodes announced that they would be supporting the Stacks Nakamoto upgrade, becoming what would likely be one of the first and largest signers on the network. So really glad to see that. We're great to have you here join us for this conversation. Okay, guys, I'd like to start off just high level, help people understand the opportunity here. What are the opportunities that liquid stacking presents for developers and users in the Stacks ecosystem? And why is this such a big unlock for the ecosystem? And let's maybe go in the same order, Tycho.
Yeah, I think I mean, I think in general we had also nice spaces about this at the Stack DeFi show, which we do every Tuesday, and there was a researcher there from Masari who was kind of talking about the Stacks ecosystem and maturity and how to think about that, right, compared to other ecosystems. And they said that like there's basically two things that are important, right, for an ecosystem DeFi to take off, and like one is stablecoins, and the other one is to have like a good liquid stacking or liquid staking derivative, right? Because that just unlocks like the liquidity of the native token, and people can borrow against it. People can start to sort of execute all kinds of other yield strategies against it without foregoing like the native staking yield, right? So in that sense, it's like really this kind of foundational building block, right, of DeFi on any chain really. And then with Stacks, it gets sort of extra interesting, right? I mean, it grew very quickly, right? It's now a top 30 market cap token, which means that there's a lot of capital to be unlocked, right? There's a lot of collateral to be unlocked for different applications, right? For example, for Zest protocol, for Arcadico, and for others. So yeah, in that sense, it's a really exciting opportunity. And then also, and that's sort of the final thing that I'll say, like for the validator network, right? I mean, Stacks will go through the Nakamoto upgrade in 2 months, and we'll shift to this model of validators. And yeah, essentially, like the question will become, okay, how do you get the most STX, sort of the best validators producing the best yield, or how do you decentralize that, right? And liquid staking or liquid stacking will be very important with that, because it's basically can distribute or delegate this STX to all these different validators, right? Thereby decentralizing the network more, while people have liquid tokens and can do exciting stuff in DeFi and lever up and do all of this fun stuff. So yeah, that's really what excites me so much about this sort of liquid stacking revolution that's been going on since the last month or two.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a fundamental building block of DeFi on Stacks. And to your point, Stacks is around a $3 billion market cap asset right now. Last time I checked, it's around $600 million of STX is locked in consensus, securing the network. And so liquid stacking.
It's over $1 billion, actually.
Is it over $1 billion now? Okay, yeah.
It's over $1 billion. Yeah, it's over $1 billion, 440 million STX. So with that $2.5, it's we're there, Andre.
That's great. So thank you, Tycho. And so to that point, it represents over $1 billion of locked capital that can then be unlocked and used in more productive use cases. So definitely see the value there. Tim, Anuj, Jakob, anyone else have any other sort of high level thoughts about how you think about the opportunity for the Stacks ecosystem?
Yeah, I have some thoughts.
Okay, yeah, open for the panel.
So I'll let Jakob finish first. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll go and you can chime in after, Anuj. I see that there's two main benefits really to liquid staking tokens. One is the obvious one, that you don't have to wait for the staking cycle to end to be liquid on your position. So you can always trade in and out of your position at any time. The other major benefit is that now you have a token that you can actually use in other protocols. So you can layer use cases on top of each other, what is usually referred to as composability in DeFi. So you can take your liquid staking token and you can deposit it on Zest, on Arcadico, lend against it. You can come to Hermetica, you can deposit in one of our vaults and get basically yield on top of yield. And that's the beauty of what it unlocks.
Absolutely. You can see these use cases compound. Anuj, what do you think?
Just to add to what Jakob mentioned, right? So he just gave amazing pointers on how yield on yield can be generated and what are the different opportunities that exist. But I would take this from a very different landscape and probably do some market sizing and do a simple exercise here, right? To showcase how big the opportunity is for the entire ecosystem. So if you look at the entirety of the liquid staking in the whole crypto industry, it's about 45 billion plus, out of which 40 billion is with Ethereum right now, and 29 or 30 billion is with Lido at this point in time. And obviously, there are some clear winners in other ecosystems, namely, Lido, Rocket Pool in Ethereum, Jito in Solana. And right now, Jito, Solana has about 2 billion in liquid staking TVL at this point in time. So if you do a simple math on the ETH market cap, that is about 350 billion at this point in time, the percentage of ETH liquid staked is about 11%. And whereas in the Solana market cap, which is I think about 45 or 46 billion, at the moment, the percentage of SOL staked right now is almost 4%. So now let's do a comparison with Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin is almost sitting at a 1 trillion opportunity here. And even if we imagine 1%, that's a straightforward 10 billion opportunity, which is lying ahead of us. And as you guys just discussed, and to Tycho's point, right now the entirety of the TVL of Bitcoin ecosystem is about 1 billion, which means that it's very early days. Like we have just gotten started, and obviously Stacking DAO is leading the front. With almost 60 million, as he just mentioned, which is fantastic. And they've been like top gainers during the course of months, doing multiple, almost growing at 300%, if I'm not wrong, the last I checked. So I still feel that this whole opportunity of liquid staking or stacking is like massive, and it's about to explode. So this is the right time to get in for all users and to ride the wave. So yeah, that's something that I wanted to share.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point, unlocking that staking capabilities for Bitcoin is considered the holy grail in a lot of ways, right? Being able to earn sort of like a passive yield on your BTC. Tim, I want to turn over to you. Last thoughts on this question before we move on. Anything else you'd like to add?
Sure, I'll be brief. I'll just start by saying I echo everything that's been said, all very good points. One thing that I think is worth underlying is that there's a real history here. I mean, DeFi is relatively short in the world, but liquid staking has been the sort of hub of all DeFi ecosystems, and all the innovation that comes into an ecosystem and the ability to have enhanced liquidity and to have increased participation from both developers and LPs, and then also capital efficiency, all sort of gets unlocked by liquid staking and other ecosystems. Certain that'll happen here with liquid stacking. And in addition, now we have a much more secure L1, obviously. And so one was really excited about like unlocking all of that available market cap and seeing liquidity pool grow. And I think it'll happen pretty rapidly.
Great. Okay, so yeah, I want to pull on a couple of threads that you guys mentioned, which is just this idea of how liquid stacking can really improve the DeFi ecosystem liquidity. So far, we've mentioned that Stacking DAO has around 60 million total value locked, and we've seen a lot of that be put to work so far in protocols like Bitflow that offers a stable swap pool to swap between STX and staked STX. So the question is, how does liquid stacking enhance the liquidity within the Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem? And why is this so important when we think about this building block for DeFi activities on Bitcoin? And Tycho, this question's for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting point. I mean, we also didn't think it would sort of drive that much TVL, but looking back, it sort of makes sense, right? Like essentially the incentives are aligned for all users, right? So we basically said, look, if you mint ST stacks, there are points that you earn, right, on Stacking DAO, and those points basically, is a way to measure community participation, right, ahead of like a decentralization. But then we also said, look, you will earn more points for ST stacks you mint if you deploy it in a DeFi protocol, right? And I think that's really what's been the driving force here, right? So as soon as like Bitflow opened up their pools, like everyone with their ST stacks rushed into there, and like as soon as more protocols will open up pools, we'll also open up the points there, right? And yeah, that's been like a really interesting driver to see. So not only are people sort of stacking and minting ST stacks, but they're also extra incentivized to deploy in DeFi and help bootstrap all these apps that are being built. So that's sort of also what I thought about would be useful for me, right, for Zest protocol. Like as soon as we launch, which is very very imminent, then people can earn more points for using ST stacks as collateral, and other builders are also sort of very actively considering that. It's like a huge pool for TVL, and yeah, really exciting way to basically get all these apps going before SVPC comes, right? And yeah, so that everyone has already done some volume, and we can really hit the ground running then.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you talked about some upcoming integrations. You mentioned Zest protocol. I believe Hermetica is also looking at ways to support liquid stacking. So, Jakob, can you maybe talk about just sort of anything that you want to discuss specifically around Hermetica and your plans to support liquid stacking, as well as sort of how you see these sorts of integrations really contributing to the success of liquid stacking?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we are planning to launch a first vault with the STX token, meaning you can deposit your stacks into staking DAO, get the STX token, and then use that token in a vault, in Hermetica vault. We then use only the stacking rewards to execute an option strategy that generates more yield. We'll have more details on this in a little bit. The yields that we have seen in the backtest are significant, so it's very exciting stuff. And essentially what it means, you're only risking your rewards from the stacking in the first place. So in the worst case scenario, you get your stacks back. But in the best case scenario, you make more STX. We're such big fans of this concept of liquid staking or liquid stacking that we are applying this idea or this technology to our vaults themselves. So if you deposit STX into our vault, you get a token back that represents your deposits and essentially is an STX earn token. And so you are still liquid and you're earning two yields at the same time. You're earning the stacking yield, you're earning the trading vault yield, and you have a token that you can trade in and out of. So I think this is extremely important. And I think is one of the benefits of DeFi in general. We have the ability to issue tokens against deposits. That's really what it is at the end of the day. And therefore create layers of liquidity on top of each other. That can obviously, there's some dangers to it, right? You don't want to over leverage too much. But it unlocks all this liquidity to be able to earn in all these different places.
Yeah, maybe it's worth just spending a moment on like what are the risks that are involved with that. You mentioned like sort of like additional leverage on top of that. I don't know if Jakob, if you want to respond to that, or if anyone else has thoughts.
I mean, I can give my 2 cents, and I'm curious what the other folks think. I think that anytime you engage in a new protocol, anytime you stack, if you take a token and deposit in another protocol, you take on the risk of that protocol. So you want to be sure that that is built correctly. And in terms of leverage, it really depends on what is the protocol doing that you're engaging with. For us, for example, we're buying options. So there is always limited risk. There's never actually leverage in that you can get liquidated. So at the end of the day, it depends on the product and the protocol that you're engaging with. But on a technology end, you're taking the risk of stacking multiple smart contract risks on top of each other.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Thanks, Jakob. I'd like to kind of pivot the conversation a little bit. So, we've talked about how successful liquid staking has become in other ecosystems. It's now a multi-billion-dollar or tens of billion-dollar industry that's powering Ethereum and Solana. And so, we're not reinventing the wheel here, right? There's proven demand for this, and it's sort of clear the impact that it can have on the DeFi ecosystem. So, Anuj, I know you've been involved in many other DeFi ecosystems. What lessons should we learn from these experiences? Is there anything that you think, any takeaways that you would like to share with the audience around sort of what you've seen and how that's evolved in other ecosystems?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are some core set of principles that previously multiple protocols have followed, which has led to their successful launches. And I would like to share some of those, right? So one is them being completely decentralized. So engaging with as many signers as possible and distributing the capital is something that is very important to de-risk the protocol in general and to embrace decentralization as a principle. And promoting that is something that should be core to the protocol. So that is number one. Number two, security is at the heart of this, right? So you can't get security wrong, especially when you're dealing with loads of capital, and you need to have fully audited smart contracts in place, probably even multi-audited with multiple people being able to having access to those audits completely open source, so that even there are like bug bounties and whatnot, which could be spin up, so that the security of the protocol is like maintained, and there is always like heavy investment and made towards this particular element, I would say, because that gives users a lot of trust. And third thing that I've also seen is once the ecosystem gets a little bit more mature, typically these liquid stacking protocols should set up their own insurance pools to cover any losses that happen via splashing. So this is again to give confidence to the users that their funds are somewhat safe, and if there is anything that happens, then there is some amount of coverage that is possible at the protocol level. And if that could be completely permissionless in nature, then that is even better. Like through various different governance, engagements, right? There is another dimension that is obviously debatable, which is obviously existent in the Ethereum ecosystem, which is like selecting a set of signers versus having this permissionless model where anyone can come and become a signer or a validator, for instance, in the Ethereum ecosystem, right? So that's the difference between Lido and Rocket Pool. So I'm not sure like which one is going to be more embraced in the stacking space, but that is something that we'll be seeing more and more people focusing on, like both these models and testing it out and seeing like which one gets like more attention and distribution in terms of capital. So that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And yeah, so these are like some high level thoughts that I have to share with respect to the protocol design itself, and points to consider or lessons to take away from other liquid staking protocols that have been successful.
Yeah, those are really interesting points. I'd be curious to know if Stacking DAO and Papaya have thought about some of those topics around the insurance fund and things like that. And I know one of the topics that you mentioned is specifically around the signer and having that decentralized signer set and some of the approaches that they're taking. I think this leads to a really important thread here, which is just, after Nakamoto, stackers will be required to run signer nodes, which has a really critical role of securing the network and actually processing SBDC deposit and withdrawal transactions. So permissionlessly moving your Bitcoin onto the L2. So I'm just curious to understand, within the context of liquid stacking protocols, how exactly will they evolve to accommodate signers, and what role do they play in that? Tycho, I know that you and I have spoken about this, and you have some thoughts, so would love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think here is also where like liquid staking or liquid stacking protocols will have a big responsibility, right? Like it's essentially towards the network and helping essentially decentralize that, right? But basically, what Stacking DAO will do, and this is something we haven't announced yet, so I suppose this is the moment to maybe share some alpha, but it's introducing like essentially the validator program. Right? So for one, when someone mints SD stacks, they'll be able to choose in a drop down a validator that they would want to delegate the SDX to, right? And those validators need to be whitelisted by the DAO. So that's like the first step. And then it's also about like helping new validators, bootstrapping new validators through essentially an automated strategy. So there would be a way for users to be like, well, I don't really care so much which validator, just automate it, right? Choose the best ones, right? And in that way, Stacking DAO can essentially, help bootstrap further that validator network and reward sort of the best performing validators. Now on that point of slashing insurance, I mean, we have thought about it quite a bit, and it will work quite differently probably for stacks, because there is no slashing. It's just that STX can be locked for a certain period of time. So it will make it different. It will sort of create a bit of a different paradigm, and yeah, it's something that we'll have to think about more, and invite more people to contribute to as Stacking DAO decentralizes.
Yeah. All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Getting some alpha about the Stacking DAO validator program. Super interesting to hear about that, and clearly it will play an important role in ensuring a decentralized validator set for Stacks Nakamoto, and helping to actually secure the network and bootstrap new validators as well. Okay, I'd like to start to transition into sort of like concluding thoughts, any sort of like final takeaways. We have about 2 minutes here. And so maybe we can just start going through. Gentlemen, like, any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience with as we start to close out this topic? And Tim, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, we're really interested in the liquid stacking variations that are going to come about and all the innovation that's going to unlock. A lot of the opportunity, or a lot of the liquid stacking opportunities will initially be in earning yield off of stacks. One other thing that we're very interested in is the fact that there are very few products that provide Bitcoin denominated rewards. That's one thing we're doing at Papaya, and Bitcoin denominated rewards that you can use in DeFi, obviously. And so that's pretty exciting for us. I mean, obviously we're interested in that because we're building it, but also there's been a proliferation of pegs in the ecosystem. We're most concentrated on SBTC, but we're interested in see what kind of utility X and ABTC have in the coming months, and how those two denominated forms of Bitcoin and others evolve as different stacking protocols are released.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's go Jakob, Anuj, and then Tycho, you can get the closing thought here. So yeah, Jakob.
Yeah, I think most has been said. We're very excited to launch our version of liquid staking, which is a liquid yield vault, which essentially uses the same technology. I think that is to some degree also new in all of DeFi. So very excited to see how we can integrate actually our token in more protocols. And yeah, happy to be part of this.
Awesome. Anuj.
Yeah, I think definitely this is a new space that we are entering into. We've been very familiar with the Ethereum ecosystem and other parts of crypto. We have not been like deeply involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So now it's super amazing to see great protocols like Stacking DAO, Papaya, and to collaborate with. So we are super optimistic, and we want to be like more deeply involved, given we see that this is a massive opportunity.
All right, and Tycho, close us off.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be very brief, but yeah, I mean, look, if you want to be part of this revolution, stackingdao.com is there. You can explore more about liquid stacking today, and you play around, and yeah, most likely you might be tempted also to try some DeFi protocols on stacks, right? Using ST stacks, like it's basically, we want to be that gateway, right? That essentially, will eventually mainly lead to Zest protocol, but also to many others, right? So that's what it's for, and yeah, you could be part of it and have some fun.
Okay, guys. Well, we're at time. Thank you so much, and until next time.